Hey guys, it's Ben with Ben's Appliances, and today I'm going to show you how to install a 4-prong and 3-prong dryer cord on a dryer. This is a Whirlpool Duet dryer, but in the case of installing the cords, it's going to be similar for pretty much every brand, although the terminals are going to be a little bit different. To install either cord, you only need really one thing, and that's going to be a Phillips head screwdriver. Some nuts do have a hex head on them, others do not. It is also possible you may have one that only has like nuts on it that you'll need to use like a 5/16 nut driver on, but those tend to be in the minority right now. The other thing that we're going to show, and I'm going to stress, is a strain relief. These will ensure that your dryer lasts a bit longer and nothing bad happens to your unit. So let's go ahead and have some fun with this. So the first one we're going to do is a 3-prong plug here. This is what a standard dryer plug looks like. If your 3-prong outlet looks different than this, then chances are it's been wired improperly, but you should still be able to use the correct plug. Sometimes older houses may use stove outlets instead of dryer outlets, and it would be okay if you had to use a stove cord, but not vice versa. You do not want to use a dryer cord on a stove outlet, but let's just assume everything's okay with this. The first thing we're going to want to do is install what's called the strain relief, which is a metal clamp that fits in here. And what this does is it prevents your cord, once installed, from pulling itself out from the terminals, which would end up potentially arcing themselves and destroying the terminal, costing you either a new dryer or a lengthy repair. When you buy a new cord, you're going to get this included with pretty much any one that you get at the store. So all you have to do is put the strain relief in and insert it. It's a clamshell design like this. And then you're just going to go ahead and throw the screws on top, even hand tightened, just to make sure that it threads, and then you can start work on your cord. And I'm going to take just a Phillips head screwdriver and clamp it down just a little bit. And that's done so far. To install your 3-prong, once you have the strain relief inserted properly, you're just going to take the 3 prongs and insert them into the strain relief and fish them through. Sometimes it can be a little bit stiff or difficult. It may take a little bit of elbow grease, but typically they go in pretty easily. Strain reliefs make it a little bit more difficult, but the strain relief helps out a lot to ensure that the longevity of your dryer is pretty nice. So once these have been fished through, I'm going to go ahead and take the screws out all the way and then insert them back in properly. Now the important thing here is you want to make sure that the middle wire on this power cord is always inserted to the middle neutral terminal. If you take this middle one and put it to either side, at best case scenario, it will not work. Or worst case scenario, you will get electrocuted, and I've seen it actually happen before on customers not knowing what they're doing, which is why I am making this video. So make sure the middle wire on a 3-prong is set to this middle terminal. So you take the screw. So for a quick, brief interruption, I want to admit that I totally lost this screw for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes. That goes to the central post. Now, one thing that you may want to know about these screws is that they are very expensive to buy if you have to order them from Whirlpool or eBay or whatever, but you can use replacement screws from your hardware store. Typically, you will go with either a 10/32 screw, which is this, or some dryers will use a 10/24 screw over here. So this actually matches perfectly with this screw had I had not been able to find it. So either a 10/32 or a 10/24 is going to work for your dryer. If in case you lose it. We end up having to replace these all the time, and you either want to use a 1/2 inch length or 3/8 inch length. Both of these I think are 1/2 inch, as well as the reference screw in the middle. So something important to know if you ever lose any of these in the process of installing a dryer power cord. Going back with the proper screw, which is this one, right here, hopefully that you can see. You're just going to take it, insert it onto the power cord, secure it with your screwdriver. I always use the hex feature on it instead of using the Phillips head, just force of habit, I guess. And then you're going to want to make sure that you get it up and over the terminal block. Sometimes you will not have enough of the power cord on the unit, so you want to make sure you feed a little bit extra length just in case. And then once you got it in there, turn it. Make sure you turn gently on this. You do not want to cross thread the bolt, which can happen if by some reason you got the wrong thread screws or it got inserted improperly. So you want to get it firm, but not over tighten it, because the idea here is you want to make sure that you get no side to side play on the nut. If you get no side to side play, it's installed properly. And you want to tighten it down to where it's snug and firm, but not over tightened and stripped. Otherwise, you're going to have to go out and get new nuts and screws, and that is no fun. So now we're going to work on the hot 1 and hot 2, or L1, L2, and we're just going to unscrew those nuts and then thread them back in literally the same way. Just right here, one thing to note is I usually try to put my hand underneath the screw just so there's no chance for it to fall into the hull of the dryer. That is something that happens, and it's absolutely terrible. And as long as all 3 posts are tightened, you have successfully installed the power cord right. And then the next thing we're going to do is to tighten down the strain relief and make sure it's snug and secure. So all the stress of the cord is going on the strain relief rather than the nuts up here, making sure that you're not going to have any issues with running this unit for a long period of time in the same place with the same cord. And there we go. The unit is installed properly. You have your center neutral cord here on the terminal, and then you have L2 and L1 on each side. Again, making sure that you can't push these and move them anyway. Your ground screws here, and then finally, again, the strain relief is installed, and it's very snug. This cord is not moving at all. I could probably pick this dryer up by the cord and it wouldn't destroy the unit. Not that you'd ever want to do that, but that tells you how firm it is. Okay, now we are going to install a 4-prong cord on this unit for a dryer. So this is what a typical dryer outlet or dryer cord looks like. You have the 90-degree terminal here, or 90-degree plug here, and then your 2 flat ones, and then your ground. The way this will wire up is that it is going to go white in the middle, black and red on either side. Sometimes you can look up inside here and see the collars and you can match them up, but in my experience, it does not matter. And then finally, the green is going to go over here. But we do have a caveat to kind of how all this goes, because every other YouTube video does it wrong in terms of how they handle this, and this can cause some long-term issues on your unit. What you want to do during installation is when this ground plug is unscrewed, sometimes if it's a green ground like this, you'll keep it here. But on many modern appliances, this won't be green, it will be white. And if it is white, you want to actually install it here along with the white plug, just for safekeeping, because white would be neutral rather than a ground, and you want to match it up here. So we're going to take all 4. We're going to take all 4 of the cords here and insert them in the strain relief, which is not easy. It's not the easiest with 3 of them. Now we got 4. So you're going to just put them in, make sure the strain relief is as loose as possible, and you're going to just jam them up in there. Now you want to make sure that you give some extra length to get as far in here as possible, because this green wire does need to be fished over to the left side, and I've found a lot of times that's the most difficult. So make sure you have plenty of room in the cabinet here with your cords, and then you'll want to tighten your strain relief down. And this is going to catch on the power cord itself, so you don't have to tighten down nearly as much. And this is going to get really snug really fast. And that's in really good shape. So now we're going to go ahead and match green to green. And typically these are a 5/16 screw. So in the case of a 5-in-1 screwdriver, a 6-in-1, you don't have to change screwdrivers. Now we are going to take the white and start on it. We do have some extra excess in terms of the wiring, but I'm not going to change the strain relief. I'm just going to kind of fit it all here inside the cabinet. It will be a little snug in terms of how much wiring there is, but I'd rather have more extra length of this rather than not. And again, we want to make sure it's really firm and snug on there. There's no play on anything. And then we are going to finally do the last one, the red on the right side. It doesn't have to be on the right side. It could be on the left side, but typically I do red on the right. And this one's still a little bit loose. It feels snug on the screwdriver, but you want to make sure it's as snug as possible. And there you go. All three are snug. You have the ground over here. If it was white, you'd want to attach it up here just to make sure everything's correct. I know on some of the LG videos it does say to take this and put it up here on the white, which is correct. So if this ground wire is instead a neutral white wire, you want to take it off and put it up here, leaving only your green 4-prong ground over here. And that's pretty much everything there is for a dryer. And now we are doing a stove installation for a 3 and 4 prong. This is a Whirlpool stove, but this will work on pretty much any other brand. On the dryer, you notice there were hex screws that were attached to the wiring. On this stove, it's a little bit different. You use these 3/8" hex screws that screw on and off to attach to each terminal. I think this makes it a little bit easier, but then it does require you to have a socket driver to actually get it on and off, because you want to make sure it's tight. Some brands do just have standard screws, either Phillips head or hex head, and those are okay too, but I got to use what I have here at the shop for videos, so it is 3/8" hex head it is. So we have the strain relief already installed. To be honest, I already had a cord installed on this and I had to take it off for the video. So one thing to note about this is that this is where the ground screw goes, and typically if you're doing 3-plug install, you're going to have a ground strap that goes from this neutral here down to here. So if you are doing a 3-prong installation, you want to make sure that that's installed and that your ground plug is there in use. If you're doing a 4-prong, then you do not want the brass ground strap that goes from here to the neutral. We're going to be doing both types, but I do not know where the ground strap is here because this was set up entirely for a 4-prong unit, but we will show installation regardless. So this is what we're going to install. This is a 3-prong setup right here, and the first thing we're going to do is insert it through the strain relief down here, tighten the strain relief up once we have enough slack here, and then finally install it onto the hex nuts. Want to make sure the strain relief is definitely loose enough to handle these 3 prongs into the harness. Just beat them up, and then what I typically do is just kind of pseudo mount them on here to make sure that there's enough room to tighten tighten down the strain relief. So once you know that they're going to have enough slack, you're going to go ahead and take your screwdriver and then tighten the two Phillips head screws that are on the strain relief. Okay, that strain relief is on really tight, and now we can go ahead and start working on tightening in and installing the 3-prong cord. I always like to start with the center nut first. If they're loose, you can tighten them with your fingers, but you definitely don't want to do that to finish it, to make sure it's on secure to prevent the unit from arcing. Then 3/8 deep well socket. You want to make sure you have a deep well for this. And you can almost hand tighten with the socket once it gets kind of difficult. But you do want to make sure that you tighten it as good as possible at the very end to make sure there's no play with the hex itself. Make sure it's secure but not stripped. That will not go anywhere now. Did not give it enough slack on the strain relief, so may want to do the strain relief at the very end. There we go. Okay, now all three of these prongs are matched up properly. The middle is to the white neutral, and then you have either side can be flipped around, black and red, but as long as the center cord on the power plug is in the middle for the neutral, you're good to go. And we'll just retighten the strain relief and it is entirely complete. Now we are doing the 4-prong installation on the unit. Since the back of the oven is off and it's really easy to see how these line up, it's not so easy on the dryer, but you're literally going to color code it. White in the middle, red on red. Technically you can reverse the black and red and it's okay, but it's color coded, so you might as well do right this time. So this is how it's going to map out once it is through the strain relief. It's pretty self-explanatory on this unit. There's no extra cabling going to the ground wire here, no ground strap, no nothing. So you're literally going to install it as you see right here, and you're going to be good to go. So first, again, we're going to feed the individual wires through the strain relief. And there are 4, so it's not the easiest really to do. So then you're going to match up each wire to the poles and tighten the strain relief down once you're done. But this goes together very fast on a 4-prong for a stove. And again, just to note, on a brand new install, you're going to have a ground strap here going to your neutral. You want to make sure you remove it fully from the unit before installing a 4-prong. If you're doing 3-prong, that ground strap is going to stay there on the ground and go up to your neutral. And then finally, the ground screw, which is a Phillips head right there. And again, you want to make sure that every single cable is snug, tighten as necessary, but do not over tighten them because you don't want to have any screws strip. And here is a proper 4-prong power cord installation for a stove. You have everything color coded to match with the green on the ground. That's 4 ways to install power plugs on dryers and stoves. It's a pretty thorough explanation on all this. If you guys have any questions or have come into any issues, let me know. And again, just make sure at the end your strain relief is tightened as much as humanly possible, because the tighter it is, the more relief it's going to give to the cord itself and give you a longer lasting stove or dryer, because I do make lots of money off of people installing these wrong and not doing strain reliefs. So have a great day, guys. Like and subscribe if you like the content.